that are like after a Titan podcast, and oh yeah, we could do your job better than you. And final day now, the rookies will be on vacation. Floyd was on this show. He took off the NFL vacation time. He hadn't been in the NFL in 10 years, and he was still taking off the NFL's vacation time. Ian, you remember that? 3 weeks off in July for the old man.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was like he left like right after July 4th every year because he was always here for hockey, the draft and the free agency and everything else. And then he left, and then we would not see him until either like the day before training camp or like 3 days into training camp. That's how these guys take it. It's their time off. But where we sit right now, with the offseason program officially over, I think now we can judge whether or not the Titans set themselves up for success this year. Now, the coach is very excited. I mean, I just listened to his last press conference, and he was talking about how he's really proud of the group and how they put a lot at him, and he's proud of Levis, and he's excited about this, and he's ready for that, and that's great. Brian Callahan seems to believe in this team. I have my concerns. Again, you know them very well, but he seems to really like this team. He seems to really like the work ethic. He seems to really like all of the things that apparently they were able to do in the offseason. So here's where I want to start. I want to start from the day Brian Callahan was hired, because up until that point, we didn't have clarity or direction about what this team wanted to be or where they wanted to go. So from that day in January, I think it was like January 25th, and I say that because a little puppy was born a couple days later. Happy birthday to Hank. But from January 25th to now, how have the Titans done in the offseason? So I have 3 separate categories: where they improved the club, where they didn't improve the club, and where the jury is still out. So let me start with where they improved the club. Number 1 is coaching. And I'm not here to bash on Mike Vrabel, even though a lot of you always want to. I have no idea if Brian Callahan is a better coach than Mike Vrabel. And if you think Brian Callahan is a better coach than Mike Vrabel, good for you. But if you think you know Brian Callahan is a better coach than Mike Vrabel, well, you don't know the answer to that. But the fact that they brought in Bill Callahan, I mean, that is really the leader in the group. If I am comparing the coaching situation from last year to this year, there are 2 things that are at stake that I think make this a better coaching staff. Number 1, Vrabel had a nobody as his offensive line coach. And I know he can say, I played in the NFL, and I never blamed Romeo Crennel, and I never blamed Dean Pease, and I never blamed these guys in New England if something didn't work. But the reality is that Mike Vrabel's coaching staff left a lot to be desired, especially the offensive line coach, which is the most important position on a coaching staff outside of head coach, strength coach, offensive and defensive coordinators. And they replaced him with the guru, Bill Callahan. Now, I don't know if Bill Callahan can turn chicken poop into chicken salad, but we shall see. But clearly there's an upgrade there. I also like the fact that they do have a lot of veteran coaches. I thought Terrell Williams was a good coach on Mike Vrabel's staff. Well, Tracy Rocker's a veteran coach who's got a lot of experience, so I can feel okay about that. The second thing is that they did get an offensive quarterback-centric coach to replace Mike Vrabel, who, again, his entire coaching staff was a cabal of buddies from Ohio State, the Texans, and guys that said yes to him every time he asked a question. So they improved in coaching. They improved at wide receiver. Now, I don't think they have a number 1 wide receiver, and I don't think they have a true bona fide number 1 either. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, that type of player. That's why I think they would have taken Malik Neighbors with the 7th pick in the draft had he been available. But I mean, it's impossible to say that they didn't get better at wide receiver. Their second best receiver last year was Nick Westbrook-Akine. Right now, he's 5th on the depth chart, though it would not surprise me if he overtook Burks. But they absolutely improved at receiver. They improved at left tackle and center. And even though I still have my doubts about Latham making the move with Bill Callahan coaching him, I'll accept it. But there's no doubt J.C. Latham's better than the crap they had there last year. Same with Cushenberry, who just by the fact that he can put down a couple of donuts makes me believe that he's better at center than what they had in Aaron Brewer. I think they got better at corner. And this comes from Chidobe Awuzie alone. Because when I think of L'Jarius Sneed, who is the best corner the Titans have, I put a giant asterisk by L'Jarius Sneed, and you probably should too. The asterisk being if he's healthy, which we don't know. And I also think Jarvis Brownlee, everything I've heard about him from the Louisville people, they seem to love him. I think it's good to have Jarvis Brownlee as your fourth guy and not Trey Avery and Eric Guerrer and the guys that they've had before. And I think morale is better inside the building. I think it might be a little too happy. I think it may be a little too positive. I think it may be too much sunshine that's being pumped in there. But it was obvious that Mike Vrabel had pissed way too many people off. And now it kind of feels like the Titans have done the opposite. And everybody gets a sucker every time they walk into the building, just like it's the bank. So I do think that from January 25th or whatever day that was to now, they've improved the coaching, the receiver, the left tackle, the center, the corner, and the morale. Now here's where they haven't gotten better. They have not gotten better at right tackle. Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
PT stinks. Duncan stinks. And John Ojukwu an undrafted free agent. And I'm sorry, but I'm not trusting an undrafted free agent to be my starting right tackle. By the way, PT was out again today at Titans OTAs. So they have not gotten better at right tackle. I'm sorry. They have not gotten better at pass rusher. It's the same guys. Key, Landry, Weaver. And they have not gotten better at safety, where Kayvon Wallace left as a free agent, and they haven't gone out and added anybody. And Marcus May, a guy many Titan fans were banking on the Titan signing, signed yesterday with the Miami Dolphins. Now, here's where the jury is still out. The defensive line. Personally, I can't count on T'Vondre Sweat as a starter. The guy hasn't been available for a single open practice in 5 weeks. Maybe you can count on T'Vondre Sweat. I cannot. You're losing to Nico Autry, but they did add Sebastian Joseph Day, and so the jury's out on the whole Sweat thing, but I have a hard time believing that they've improved the defensive line with Danico out and T'Vondre on the treadmill and not on the field. Right guard. They say Sadiq Charles is good, except according to every metric that I've seen, he has not been good in the NFL so far. Bill Callahan would know. So they say they're better at right guard. We'll take their word for it. And inside backer. Kenneth Murray stunk with the Chargers. I mean stunk. But they seem to think there's something there. Gibbons is the same guy. He's still slow. And Cedric Gray's a rookie, so jury's out. If they hadn't added Cedric Gray, then I would have said that the inside backer position got worse because while I wasn't the biggest Azeez fan, Azeez did play every play, and Azeez did make a bunch of tackles, and so he's not there anymore. So what kind of grade is that, right? Again, coaching, receiver, left tackle, center, corner, morale. That's 5 good things. Then 3 bad things. Right tackle, pass rusher, safety. And then 3 jury's still out on. And I'm going to make it 4. Because I'm going to say the jury's out on running back too. Tony Pollard, $8 million. I am a Tony Pollard fan. And Tajay Spears definitely has some game. But we're talking about replacing Derrick Henry. So I'm going to say 4 out on the I don't know, which puts us at 5 good, 3 bad, and 4 unknown. So that's a total, I believe, that is a total of 12, and right now they're 5 of 12. Season is gone. I think that's fair. Sure, they improved the left tackle position. That's good. They had the 7th pick. So you should be able to get something like that. I'm dropping it from a C plus to a C. I think they did it. I think so far a C. That's how I feel about it. Now that instead of after free agency, because I remember when everybody was celebrating free agency and saying, yes, look at the signings of the Titans. They're so good. And I kept saying they don't have a right tackle. And people said, well, it's March, Jared. It's April, Jared. Well, now the offseason's over. Today, the offseason program ends. I give the Titans a C. They got better in some places. They got worse in others. And boy, the jury is out on a lot. But a C is average. That's not terrible. So that's how I feel about the offseason. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. And coming up next, T'Vondre Sweat is out again. So I don't know what this minor injury that wasn't a big deal. I don't know what this is. But he's missed 5 weeks now. 5 weeks. So I have just one request of T'Vondre Sweat. I beg this of T'Vondre Sweat. And if I was the Titans, I'd sit him down and I'd guilt him into this. We'll get to that next here on the program. Purchase your tickets now for the Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway Friday, September 13th through Sunday, September 15th at MusicCityGP.com. As the racing station, 102.5 The Game has a special offer. Use promo code GAME for a 20% discount now through June 16th.
Sweat, obviously not available again today, but how is he conditioning wise, and is that any kind of concern as you take your break and get ready to come back for camp?
I'm not concerned. No, it's just one of those things that sort of lingered on him a bit. Again, don't anticipate it being a long-term issue for us, but didn't have any sense to rush him out here, not feeling perfect, and so he'll get his work over the summer. He's got a plan in place, and I'm confident that he'll execute it. So. Biggest thing for him is working still and getting in shape, ready to roll. He's obviously working, not in front of everybody, but he's here working. He's not getting the full field work, but he's here and he's getting his work in. So anticipate him being ready to roll, and we'll see what he's got in training camp.
Okay, Brian Callahan says he is not concerned with T'Vondre Sweat missing practice again. In fact, T'Vondre Sweat's been in the NFL for 5 weeks, and he's made exactly one practice. It was the first open OTA they had, and ever since then, T'Vondre Sweat has been doing nothing. I assume he's been riding the bike at 1 mile per hour, off to the side. And again, I said assume. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I think's probably happening. That while everybody's out there on the field, T'Vondre's on the bike going about 1 mile per hour. Now, Brian Callahan says he's not worried about it, but I know you guys say this to me often when I ask questions and people get mad at me, and you guys say, well, what's he going to say? And in the case of T'Vondre Sweat, what's he going to say? Because Brian Callahan was part of the crew that stuck their necks out for T'Vondre Sweat. I'm sure Amy Adams Strunk, sees what's going on and knows in her head. And I am assuming feelings here, but I think I'm probably right about this. She probably knows, when Mel Kiper says something or I say something or whomever, that's not really an informed opinion compared to the opinions that I have of the experts that I pay millions of dollars to that all compile this information and everything else. So when everybody wags the finger at the Titans when they draft T'Vondre Sweat and they say, you took that guy with the 38th pick? I'm sure it's easy for the owner to say to themselves, well, look, our guys are convinced that he's worth it and he's going to make it and all these things. But that doesn't mean that the owner doesn't hear it. That doesn't mean that the owner isn't sitting there hearing every day Rick Spielman, Mel Kiper, Dane Brugler, Daniel Jeremiah, everybody just crap on that pick. And isn't sitting there thinking, I don't know. And then the red flag talk. They said, oh, no, we went down to Texas. We're sure that he's going to be okay. When the biggest red flag is his weight, and now he's already hurt, now he can't get out on the field, I can promise you the owner's lazy, fatty, and we're worried that the biggest problems are he's lazy and fat. Of course he's not going to say that. But I can't be the only person that finds it at least a little disconcerting that the Titans drafted a guy who's made one practice and ever since then he's been hurt when availability is the number one question. So I have one thing that I beg of T'Vondre Sweat. If T'Vondre Sweat was right here, I'd say, sit down, big boy. We got to have a conversation. And I beg of T'Vondre Sweat, do not leave Nashville for the next 6 weeks. Everybody else is leaving Nashville. Everybody else is going home. Everybody else is going to Bermuda, to Turks and Caicos, to Italy, to wherever. Everybody's going. Stay here. He got a check for about $3.7 million last week. Now, if you got a check for $3.7 million and then you got 5 weeks off, what do you think you'd do? Would you stay in Nashville, Tennessee? No. I'm not going to be in Nashville, Tennessee next week. But I also don't have everybody counting on me, and I'm not, starting off as a rookie in the NFL and everybody not sure. And I don't think my first summer here at the radio station, I don't think I went anywhere off the top of my head. I remember I took a day off. I took a Friday off the first year I was here because I had a lease on an apartment in Louisville that I lived in that I couldn't break because the penalty was 2 months rent if you broke it and I had 2 months left on it or something. And I went and cleaned out all my stuff. And, like, that's it. That was the only period. But now, I'm established. Everybody knows that I'll be answering the bell when it matters. But we don't know that about T'Vondre Sweat. So Brian Callahan was talking about the opportunity that the guys have and the programs they have set up for them and everything else during the offseason. And he made it clear that, hey, if these guys want to stay here in Nashville and work out, they can.
Do you have players a program to follow for these next 6-8 weeks, or you kind of just trust them to?
No, guys have there's programs available. Our strength staff does a great job. They give them a take-home program to follow, some guidelines, things they suggest they do, so they're ready to roll. And the key is to not waste the work they've done at this point. Take some time, take a week or two, take a break, but you hit after July 4th, it's getting close. It's time to go, and these guys are pros and they understand that. But we give them any resource they need. Our staff, performance staff, is here every day. So if guys are in town, want to get a workout, they can come in and work. There's no regulations against that. So they've done a great job, I think, with the designing of the program and with the take-home program as well. Guys have whatever they need available to them.
Guys have whatever they need. We'll be here the whole time. So if you want to come through, our strength staff will be here. If you want to get a workout in, we'll be here. We want T'Vondre, I want you to show up to that facility every day, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Don't have to show up at 6 a.m. Don't have to, hey, I'll be the first guy in the building. Don't worry about that. But show up every day, Monday through Friday. Take Saturday and Sunday off. You want to spend a couple of days, go somewhere, that's fine. But again, Monday through Friday for the next 6 weeks, while everybody else is vacationing, while everybody else is, I want you to stay in Nashville. I want you to stay under the eye of that training staff, of that nutritional staff, of that and I'm saying this, and I know that some people will say, oh, Jared, you can't babysit the players, and this, and this is a suggestion to help him. Because the spotlight that is on him, this is the most controversial pick that the Titans made in a very important spot with a lot of factors around it, like the Rams trade to the 39th pick and everything else. And the Titans did him a solid, because I don't believe anybody else would have picked him in that range. Maybe somebody would have picked him in the middle or the end of the second round, but nobody's picking him in the top 40. But the Titans did him a solid, because that DWI could have tanked his draft stock. And instead the Titans said, no, we believe in you. We trust you, so we're going to stick our necks out for you. Well, now you got to meet them halfway. And the only way you can do that is by giving yourself the best opportunity to succeed. And this team's counting on you, because he is the replacement for Danico Autry. And Danico Autry was a great Titan. He was a productive player, and I don't think it's an accident. Remember, the last game they won in 2022, when they were 7-3, and they finished 7-10, the last game they won was at Green Bay. And what happened in that Green Bay game? Danico Autry got hurt. Danico was a big part of this team, and he's supposed to replace Danico. And so the pressure's going to be there right away. And if you show up to training camp and you're out of shape, this fan base is going to go nuts. And ask Treylon Burks what it is like when you don't get off to a good start. Because he's been fighting that current since the day he had to bow out a rookie minicamp. So this is a suggestion for T'Vondre Sweat. But you need to stay in Nashville. I don't care what Cedric Gray does. I don't care what J.C. Latham does. I don't care what Jarvis Brownlee does. I don't care. As long as you're not getting arrested, as long as you're not doing drugs, as long as you're, all the stupid things they say, hey, man, don't be stupid for the next 6 weeks, Hassan Haskins. As all those things happen, other than that, I'm not worried about. But I'm worried about him. And I don't know at this point how you can't be. So this is the advice. Do not leave Nashville. And I know it will be hard when you're on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or whatever the crap the kids are on nowadays. I know it will be hard to sit there in a Nashville apartment and watch Netflix and whatever. I know it'll be hard. While everybody else is out on the beach and everybody else is out having a good time, and I get it. But this is 5 weeks, 6 weeks to set you up for your career, which will define probably the rest of your life. So just trust me on this. Do not leave Nashville. And if he does leave Nashville, and if he does come back, and if he is out of shape, or he isn't ready to play, it's going to be a 5-alarm fire around here. So that's my advice. Justin about do not leave Nashville. Just trust me on this one. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. 615-737-1025 plus. Everybody got mad at me because when they took T'Vondre Sweat, and I saw every draft guru say, I mean, that's great. I would have taken him in the 4th round, maybe not the 2nd round. I was like, whoa. Did they make a big mistake here? And everybody got mad at me. But I do want to go back to when they drafted him. I do want to go back to when they stuck their neck out for him and ask you all a single question that we know an answer to today. We'll do that next here on the program. First, let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. Those guys have taken great care of my home for 6 years, and they can do the exact same for you. And I know this because, again, I use Hiller just like a regular customer. There's no special treatment, no special. They are great with everybody. And let's face it, things often aren't as simple as they should be when it comes to maintaining the most important systems in your home. And this summer, Hiller is making it simple. With a real-time technician tracking, you'll know exactly when they're on their way, and you can trust that you have the best and brightest techs in your home, fixing the problem on their first trip out. So from now until June 30th, enjoy a free service call with any work performed or take $25 off any plumbing or electrical repair. And, of course, you know what Hiller says. Happy you'll be here. The service is free. Visit happyhiller.com today for details. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Devondre Sweat, I think, surprised people in the second round. I really do. I think it surprised a lot of people because a lot of people thought he was ticketed more towards the third round. A lot of people think he might just be a 2-down defensive tackle. Weight, can he hold that weight and maybe slim it down a little bit so he can stay on the field? He had some issues along the way. You mentioned issue going into the draft. Tennessee actually had him in the day after the issue happened, the DUI, and then took a contingent of people to his hometown to talk with a lot of people, to make sure him, spend time with him, family. They believed in what they were getting, signed him. Plus the mantra of being more physical, more tough, tougher than they had been. Not that they weren't under Mike Vrabel, because that was his mantra too, but that mantra continues here. And he fit what they were looking for. And you mentioned it, being better and stronger on the offensive and defensive lines.
That was Charles Davis on Sirius XM NFL Radio saying, there's a lot of people probably wouldn't have taken Devondre Sweat, but the Titans did. By the way, one texter in our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com says the only team event Sweat has shown up to was DeAndre Hopkins' birthday party, which was an open bar until 2 a.m. LOL. I do not know the details of DeAndre Hopkins' birthday party. As you can assume, I was not invited, so I don't know what went down there. I don't know when the open bar was until or what. So, that is sad, though, that they have had 6 open practices, OTAs, minicamp, and he hasn't participated in one. So here's the question I ask you. The day he was drafted, when they picked him, Daniel Jeremiah on the NFL Network broadcast was like, whoa, this might be a controversial pick here. Like when it went off the board at 38. And then the Rams traded up, including a second rounder in next year's draft, to get to 39 to take Braden Fisk. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on. So you just took a guy who just got a DWI, and you could have traded with the Rams to get a second round pick next year, and this guy's got weight issues, and this guy's got maturity issues, and this guy's got, and everybody else is saying that he's only a 2-down player. And the Titans got up at that podium and they crossed their arms and they said, trust us, we know. And a lot of you, because you want to trust the Titans, did. I don't trust the Titans at all. So I don't, that's why Diana can report that Vrabel's coming back as coach, and I can say, well, I just don't believe that. And then I was right. But you do. You guys want to trust the Titans. You guys do trust the Titans, and that's okay. Now, if I had told you that day, by the way, he's not going to be at a single offseason practice that we're going to know about. Now, I guess he participated in the first one, but other than that, he's going to miss 5 straight weeks. Then would you have felt as good as you did that day? And I'll compare this with L'Jarius Sneed, because L'Jarius Sneed hasn't practiced at any of the open stuff either. And I think even though there was a lot of pushback about how the knees weren't an issue, or, oh, it'll be fine, or go watch the tape, or all that stuff, I think we all know there's a knee problem with L'Jarius Sneed, because players like L'Jarius Sneed don't go for third-round picks in next year's draft unless there's a dent in the car. But I think we kind of knew when they traded for L'Jarius Sneed and signed him that, hey, this is L'Jarius went through all this last year, but he showed up to the church on Sundays. And that's what's going to have to happen this year. So okay. I think if I told you that day L'Jarius Sneed's not going to practice at all in the spring, I think you guys would have said, fine. I don't think you would have said the same thing with Devondre Sweat. So, it's easy to move the goalposts, but I don't know. I don't know how you would have felt if you heard that day. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. Sam in Mount Juliet has been waiting patiently and is going to kick us off here. Thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Jared. It's my understanding that Mr. Sweat cannot compete at an NFL-level training camp because of the shape he's in. And I just can't see him being more than a one-down player if he's even here when the season starts.
How is that your understanding, Sam?
It's just my understanding personally. Yeah, we'll put it that way, okay, Jared? But
so it's your gut, or it's not your? Is it your gut, or is it your understanding?
let's just say I've heard from other people that he's physically unable to perform NFL basic training camp drills, and I think perhaps that maybe they're just keeping him inside and working him out inside, so he doesn't have to be stressed out there with the other guys, and he just can't perform at that level at this time. So that's where I'm at.
All right, Sam. Thank you for your call. Ian, sounds like Sam knew a little something there.
Well, maybe.
Is it irresponsible for us to say like, oh, he heard something there?
Probably a little.
I mean, I'm just saying that when it comes to Tavondre Sweat, my guts, so I have no understanding here. Like, saying it's my understanding that he's not physically able to perform. I have no understanding here. This is my gut. My gut says he's right. My gut says, and I'm not saying that he has inside info, the caller, but my gut says that Sweat's not in shape. That's what my gut tells me. And that I don't think he's injured. I think he's fat. That's what I think. Because I've been with teams before and I've seen this. We had a post player when I was at Louisville, and I'm not going to tell you how much she weighed because that's not anybody's business, but we had a big post player. And she ended up tearing her ACL the year we went to the national championship. But the year before that was the first time that they ever went to the Sweet 16. And she was a humongous part of that. And, I mean, we're talking about Tina Charles now and how, like, Caitlin Clark's not on Team USA. And we would be competitive with Connecticut and Rutgers and those teams that had Tina Charles and Kia Vaughn because we had a big dominant post player that could go with it. But it had to be managed differently. And I do think that there's something to Tavondre Sweat not being in shape to practice and the fear that the Titans have that if they put a guy out on the field who's not in shape, that he's going to get hurt. And then all of a sudden that they're going to be, behind the eight ball come training camp and everything else. I think the expectation is that Tavondre Sweat's going to get in shape over the next 5 or 6 weeks and that when training camp comes that he'll be ready to go. And I can't tell you he's not going to be able to do that, but I hope so. Chris in Nashville says, how can Brian Callahan not be concerned about a lingering injury? With a question mark, of course. The thing Callahan said today was that he was not concerned about Tavondre Sweat. I got to tell you, again, I just think if Brian Callahan came out and said that he was concerned, I mean, that would lead to 5 weeks. I mean, we're already talking about it now. So just imagine if he said, oh, yeah, I am concerned. Then it's like, oh, God, they're concerned. Oh, I knew it. So I think that's probably why he said he's not concerned. I mean, if they sat there when they had their meetings, and you know this as well as I do, every guy who gets married, oh, I just knew she was the one. At some point, they had either a talk with somebody else or a talk with themselves about, well, I don't necessarily like that she's an orthodontist, I just don't know how I feel about that. Everybody's had those talks with themselves. You'll never admit to it, but you've had them. They had talks when it came to Sweat about, okay, do we really trust that this guy will be able to perform for us, which includes the DWI stuff, but also includes the weight stuff. And they said yes. But if they had sat around there and they had said, okay, what if this guy is not in shape when he shows up, that he doesn't participate in a single offseason practice except for the first one or the rookie minicamp? Then what? Would they have still taken him at 38? I don't think they would have. 615-737-1025. More of your phone, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Coming up next, a target of the Titans that many of you had just pinned in they were going to sign is now a Miami Dolphin. So what does that mean for the safety position? We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there. Tune in to Robbie and Rex Road tomorrow morning from 6 to 9 for your chance to win tickets to see Alanis Morissette at Bridgestone Arena on June 23rd. Contest presented by Green Trees.
Oh yeah, there's opportunities to add all the way through. I mean, there's time now we can still add, and then there's also another, player movement at the end of the training camp when you talk about roster cuts. But yeah, we're still actively looking. We'll never stop that process. We're always looking to add players that we think can help us in the right places. So I would say that's that's an open-ended question because it's a constant. You know, our pro personnel guys are always looking to see where we can get a little bit better and maybe add some competition and some depth. So that door's always open until it's not allowed to be open anymore.
Yep, let's add some players. By the way, the door's always open. We've seen the Titans cut guys, sign guys, practice squad guys. The idea that, like, the player acquisition period ever ends is no. That never happens until you're knocked out for the season. And even then, as soon as you get knocked out for the season, you announce that you signed 30 guys to future contracts. So, no, that never ends. But a target that a lot of Titan fans had circled to play safety for this team, Marcus May, who had come in for a visit earlier in the spring, signed last night with the Dolphins. Now, Ian, I was looking this morning. I could not find a dollar figure for what Marcus May signed for.
I have not seen one. No.
It reminds me of during the Clowney sweepstakes when we were talking to Floyd about it. He's like, if I was GM, all I'd offer him is minimum salary. Now, I'd incentivize him, but minimum salary, that's all that's left. And it makes me think that that's probably what Marcus May, somewhere in the ballpark of $1 million. Something like that. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm guessing. Or that the Dolphins gave him a little bit more than minimum salary and they signed Marcus May. So I saw that Marcus May signed yesterday, and I was like, wait a minute. I thought Marcus May was the guy that the Titans had kind of circled because he had experience with Denard Wilson with the Jets, and so that was going to be a guy that they'd bring in here to play safety. Well, I guess not. It must be a money thing. I don't know. Here's what I'll say about the safety position and the Marcus May and everything else. I have two thoughts with this. The first thing is this. The first thing is, if the Titans decided, hey, we want a safety, and I believe there were 3 veteran safeties that were out there yesterday before May signed. Quadre Diggs is out there, as is Justin Simmons. Then the Titans could wait for the last guy and then offer him minimum salary. Oh, that's what the Patriots did when they signed Cam Newton to play quarterback, was there were all these guys that ended up signing backup jobs. Mariota went to the Raiders. Jameis Winston went to the Saints. Andy Dalton went to the Cowboys. And so all these guys that were starters, their contracts end. They go out there. The Patriots lose Tom Brady. And so instead of saying, okay, we're pouncing on Andy Dalton because this is the guy we want, they waited until the very last second and they signed Cam Newton for minimum money. And I've said, if there's 4 safeties and you want one of those 4, you can wait. If you want one specific guy of those 4, you have to pay. So my guess is the Titans are going to sign the last guy available for the least amount of money, whether it's Diggs or Simmons. Now, whoever they sign, in my opinion, will be the best safety on the team, because I think those players are better than Amani Hooker. And that includes Simmons, who, according to Pro Football Focus, has completely fallen off over the last 4 years. I haven't watched the Broncos like that to be able to tell you if it's true or not. That's just what they said. And considering the complete and total lack of interest in Justin Simmons around the NFL, it seems to probably be true. That being said, he does have a good reputation amongst, fans and media of saying that he's really, really good. The second thing is this. I don't know how much money the Titans have left to spend. Yes, they have spent a fortune, but you have to remember, their quarterback's complete contract cost $9 million. Everybody else's quarterback cost $50 million. Even in the case of Anthony Richardson, Anthony Richardson's contract is $34 million. Levis is $9 million. So they have a lot of money that is not wrapped up at quarterback that everybody else is spending at quarterback so they can spend other places. And yet they still only have like a mid-level payroll. But so where I sit here and I look at what they're doing, I do wonder, are they saying to themselves like, hey, we've got $10 million left in the kitty. We've got $5 million left, whatever it may be, but we don't know about right tackle. Now, I've told you guys, safety, you can fudge that position. Inside backer, you can fudge it, and they are fudging it. You can fudge those positions. Guard, you can fudge. I've told you, I don't think you can fudge right tackle, and you know why I think you can't fudge right tackle. Because it's a real position. So could they be sitting there saying, hey, we're going to give these guys a shot to play right tackle, but if not, we got to keep some money to the side in case we need to go get a right tackle, and that's why they haven't jumped at safety. It could also be about defensive line, too, because, again, we spent the whole hour talking about how we're not sure about T'Vondre Sweat. But I do wonder if the Titans are serious about safety. I do wonder, as Marcus May comes off the board, why the Titans, if that was the guy that they were circling because of his relationship with Denard Wilson, I do wonder, where are the Titans in all of this? Cameron says, speaking of Burks at rookie minicamp, whatever happened to his asthma? That I couldn't tell you. What I can tell you is this, though. Treylon Burks was not at OTAs today. What happened to A+ effort from Nick Holtz? You know what? Trevor gets on Treylon Burks, and everybody gets mad at Trevor, and then Treylon Burks doesn't show up the last voluntary day. I mean, I thought Treylon Burks was the guy who's got to be there every day to prove that he belongs. Whatever. Again, I'm not going to get too worked up about it, but where was Treylon Burks today? Treylon, he's got a lot to prove. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So SiriusXM NFL Radio does this thing called two-a-days, where they take two teams a day up until training camp, and they break down the two teams and everything else. Today, they had the Titans. And there was one thing they kept coming back to. And you guys are going to hate this. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Become a sponsor of the 615 Open Hour Golf Tournament or register as a team. And the 615 Open is presented by Gary Force Acura. Proceeds will help raise money for Souls for Souls. Sponsorship packages could include email campaigns, commercials, radio advertising, and more. Learn more about our different packages and how you can support a good cause at 615open.com. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So, Sirius XM NFL Radio, The Blitz, very, very good show. Bruce Murray, the guy who hosted, I have a ton of respect for. I spent some time with Bruce, chatting with him at the Super Bowl. I love Bruce. He's a good man. He's a good radio host. Knows his stuff when it comes to ball. He's got kind of a rotating crew of people that he works with. And they've got this thing on Sirius XM NFL Radio called Two-A-Days, where they take two teams every day until the start of training camp, and they just break them down like crazy. And today, for that show, was Titans Day. And so a lot of people, they'd spent a lot of time breaking down the Titans. And it was he and former NFL linebacker Kirk Morrison, who I also think does a great job. And they were going over the Titans. And it's kind of this whole, if you didn't know a lot about the Titans, they're going to go kind of from start to finish. Okay, where were they last year? What did they lose? Who did they add? What's changed? What's this? And yet they kept coming back to one thing in particular. And it's one thing that you guys are going to hate. And I don't know if you guys have guessed it, because that's how I tease the segment. But the one thing they kept coming back to was Mike Vrabel. Right? They were going over, last year this was bad, and last year that was bad, and last year this was, and that's why they went and fired the coach. But Mike Vrabel is a great coach, was kind of the sentiment that they kept coming back to. This was Kirk Morrison, again, former NFL player, now NFL analyst on Sirius XM NFL Radio, talking about the Titans' decision to fire Mike Vrabel and how he felt.
I thought that Vrabel was a guy who was overachieving. I mean, when you look at the roster of the Tennessee Titans, it always started with Derrick Henry. And if Derrick was running, you were doing great. If Derrick was running, but yet not getting the big yards and touchdowns, then all of a sudden it falled on the quarterback. And we just didn't see the consistent play from Ryan Tannehill throughout the years. And to a fault, they were loyal to Ryan Tannehill. How many times have we talked about, I think a lot of people talked about moving off of Ryan Tannehill and trying to find the quarterback for the future. They had to go through it. They thought it was going to be Marcus Mariota when they first drafted him. That was not going to be it. Then Tannehill comes in and you have this success in the playoffs and you say, okay, well, we finally got our guy. And then that sort of tailed off. And now we enter the era of Will Levis. And it'll be interesting to see now that Brian Callahan takes on this project of Will Levis, and not necessarily Mike Vrabel, the defensive-minded head coach.
Okay, that was a lot of words right there. But again, he's like, I thought Mike Vrabel overachieved. I mean, I thought the problem with the Tennessee Titans is they were too loyal to Ryan Tannehill, i.e., not Mike Vrabel. And so now as we enter the Will Levis era, it's going to be Brian Callahan who gets to coach Will Levis, not Mike Vrabel. And again, it kept coming back to why Vrabel's not the coach anymore. And it was almost like the discussion they were having was, well, all this was bad, and that's the kind of stuff that'll get a coach fired. But can you believe they fired Vrabel? And I know you guys are going to say, well, the national media doesn't understand. And to a certain extent, I think you're right. But I actually started thinking about this. Do we know why Mike Vrabel got fired? Like, do we know the reason why Mike Vrabel got fired? I've said that I think Mike Vrabel is a very good coach, and I've also said that if I owned the team, I would have fired Mike Vrabel. But I don't know what their reasons for firing Mike Vrabel were. I know what my reasons for wanting to fire Mike Vrabel are. And I'm sure people will flood the text line and say, they fired Mike Vrabel because Jason Hodeling was a terrible line coach. Maybe. But we knew the offensive line was bad last year. We knew Andre Dillard was a bum. We knew all of that. When they went to Diana and they said that they viewed Mike Vrabel as their, Mike Tomlin. So how does Jason Hodeling change that? How does Tim Kelly change that? We talked at length about Vrabel and Rand, right? about this shotgun marriage that clearly felt like something was off with a lot of the things that Vrabel said and a lot of the passive-aggressive swipes and a lot of the New England media reporting Vrabel and Rand didn't get along. And then Rand sat down with Bussin' with the Boys, and he talked about how he and Vrabel are BFFs. Remember, hey, my daughter has a picture on her cell phone. Her picture of her background is her and Uncle Mike. It's like, well, I guess maybe that's not what. Ian, do we know why Mike Vrabel got fired?
I mean, I guess if you asked in the press conference, it came back to ownership, and this was Amy's decision.
Amy has her reasons.
And I'm not sure she's really given any specific reasons on the record.
Well, I thought it was time. That's not a reason. Like, you know what I mean?
There's been people talking about, organization. I know Derek Mason on our station likes to talk about the organizational structure being out of whack and all that kind of stuff. But, that's kind of just some thoughts, but nothing from ownership itself, I don't guess.
I don't know why Mike Vrabel got fired. Like, it hit me today listening to these two guys who, again, are not Titan experts, and they would never claim to be. And they are very good at what they do in Bruce Murray and Kirk Morrison. But they were literally sitting there, and they'd talk about something with the Titans, and then they'd come back to Vrabel. And then they'd talk about something with the Titans, and then it would come back to Vrabel. And as I listened to it, it was like they were befuddled that the Titans fired Vrabel without saying it. Kirk Morrison was like, look, you lose 18 of 24 games, that'll get you fired in the NFL. But that's not necessarily why Vrabel got fired, right? Like the losing? Is that really why? If you fired John Robinson, if you blamed John Robinson because of Julio Jones and Caleb Farley and Dylan Radins and Isaiah Wilson, right there, that's 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks right down the toilet. So if you blame John Robinson for that, then why would you fire Mike Vrabel when the team sucks? Wouldn't you say, well, the team sucks because John Robinson picked all these bad players, and so we have holes at right tackle where Isaiah Wilson's supposed to play, and a hole at corner where Caleb Farley's supposed to play, and a hole at left tackle where Dylan Radins is supposed to play, and a hole somewhere else where we could have used that Julio Jones pick receiver? We got a hole there because of that. I mean, can you really blame Vrabel for that? Again, and I'm just using their logic of firing Robinson in the middle of the season because they were mad at him and then turning around and blaming Vrabel. Again, the reason why I said I would have fired Mike Vrabel is because I felt like this team needed to clean house. I feel like this team they had gone too far. It was time to just hit the reset button. And that's not just with the coach, but with everything. Now, I think they probably made it worse, but that's their, philosophy of how they want to do business, of playing musical blame and firing a coach and a GM every other year. But it just kind of hit me today that we just keep hearing the national media. They don't do it all the time now because the Titans don't come up all the time. But it happened when Vrabel got fired. And in the subsequent weeks, there was kind of this, how could you fire Mike Vrabel? And I agree. There were reasons that as much as we went over this and we were talking about it, because what happens when a coach gets fired is it almost becomes okay, well, now who's next? Now let's talk next guy, where they're going from here, where they're this. I guess it just hit me that we have no idea why Mike Vrabel got fired. Like, we have no idea what it was that pissed her off so much that she pulled the trigger on him. The Joe and Diana article gives a little bit in there. She didn't say it. Rand wouldn't say it. Even if he knows, he might not know. But it just kind of hit me as everybody was as I was listening to them break down the Titans and keep talking and coming back to the coaching change, that nobody actually knows why they changed. 737-1025. Now, I have my reason for why I would have fired Vrabel. I told you that. I think it was just time to start over. I think that Vrabel, at this point, his voice had gone stale. I think that he had, at this point, probably burned up his currency with the fan base and the locker room, and I think both things matter. And so I would have fired him, but those are my reasons. I do think I know her reason, but I don't necessarily think it's your reason. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025, and of course your phones. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company here on the program today. Hey, this Thursday, Robbie and Rex Road will be broadcasting live for the grand opening of a new Dunkin' location at 326 Harding Place. 1025, the game will be on site from 6 to 9 a.m. And stop by, and you'll have your chance to win